So we are now at that part of our program where we will officially open our press event. And again, we are so excited to have you here today and to be the host for introducing the Municipal Small Business Initiative for Cuyahoga County Kickoff. We are pleased to be a partner in this, and as we go forward with the remarks of all of our guests today, you will learn more about what this initiative entails, who's involved, and how people can get involved, and what the benefit will be to our community. So to that end, we'll get this show on the road, and on our speaker panel today, we have Ms. Marianne Markowitz, who is the Regional Administrator for SBA's Midwest Region. Ms. Markowitz here. We also have our Cuyahoga County Executive, Ed FitzGerald, County Exec, glad to have you here today. Gil Goldberg, the District Director of SBA, whose brainchild this was to bring us all together and have us do this work. Our Cuyahoga County Councilman, Pernell Jones, my own personal county councilman, by the way, and Mayor Earl Leiken from City of Shaker Heights, and the Director of Economic Development for the City of Cleveland, representing also our Mayor of the City of Cleveland today, and this is Ms. Tracey Nichols. And I, of course, am your hostess today. I'm Marsha Mockabee, the President and CEO of the Urban League. So what we will do now is we will go in the order in which I've introduced the individuals, and we'll just speak in that order. So thank you. So Ms. Markowitz, you're first up. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. It's an honor to be here today with you all on such a happy occasion. It's an honor to be here celebrating and representing the Obama administration as well as the Small Business Administration. When I took my role with the Obama administration over 5 years ago, we had an overarching mission and goal, and that was to really increase collaboration, specifically across the agencies in the federal government, but also in initiatives like this across all levels of government, and that's what we're here today to celebrate. This is exactly what we strive for, all levels of government working together to give small businesses and small business communities the tools that they need to grow, to create jobs, and to make Cleveland and other municipalities awesome places to live. Thank you to Marsha Mockabee and the Urban League for their hosting the event today, for housing our great Small Business Development Center, and for their partnership on this joint lending effort. Thank you to Ed FitzGerald and Cuyahoga County for your matching funds. What you're offering today for this event and for this initiative is nothing short of amazing. We appreciate your funds, we appreciate your collaboration, and the same goes for Mayor Frank Jackson and Mayor Earl Leiken for making the pilot program possible and for also contributing funding. Finally, and last but not least, is a big thank you to my SBA team here in Cleveland. They work so hard. Gil and his team work every day tirelessly, supporting small businesses, supporting our lenders, making sure that small businesses are successful, and they work to make the SBA proud, and they certainly make me very proud with their efforts. You know, we're witnessing today is this collaborative lending pilot program. It's a community that's being proactive about the needs of the small businesses and the small business community. You're creating funding, and you're not reacting just to problems as they happen. You're being very proactive, and we really appreciate the way that this initiative came together. The Municipal Small Business Initiative has the potential to place $6 to $8 million into the hands of small businesses in Cleveland, Shaker Heights, and Cuyahoga County, and that's what this is about. So just imagine all of the opportunities that $6 to $8 million can create for the businesses in these communities. Now I'm going to back up a little bit and give you just an overall brief understanding of how SBA lending has been going across my region, which includes 6 Midwestern states. Over the last 2 fiscal years, we've promoted and supported $4 billion in lending. This year, we're almost just a little over halfway through the year, and we're already at $2.8 billion. So it's good news. It means that lending is happening at a strong and steady rate. It's good news for small businesses, it's good news for our lenders, and it's certainly good news for our economy. So again, just quickly, I want to briefly underscore again why we're here. We're here to celebrate this initiative. We're here to thank those that participated in making it a reality. The Urban League of Greater Cleveland, through its SBDC, is providing technical assistance, neighborhood focus. The county is providing matching dollars. The 2 cities are providing initial supplemental equity and grassroots marketing, and of course the very important banks who are working with our SBA offices to provide the 7A and 504 loans. Again, I'd like to specifically thank our partners, County Executive Ed FitzGerald, Mayors Jackson and Leiken, and the Urban League CEO, Marsha Mockabee, for their partnership, their collaboration, and their hard work in bringing this effort to life. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Marsha, for the introduction, and thank you, Marianne, for being here today. Today is a day that we're very happy and we're very proud to announce the culmination of a process that really began, I guess it was about a year ago. We had a meeting in my office with Mr. Goldberg and Marsha Mockabee and Councilman Jones, Larry Benders, who's the head of my economic development team for Cuyahoga County, and we got together, and the challenge that was laid out on the table was, is there a way for all of us to come together in a partnership to provide resources for small businesses that are having trouble getting access to capital, and in particular, is there a way to make sure that that capital is shared in an equitable way with businesses that many times have been locked out of that process, and that's small businesses and particularly African-American owned businesses. And that was what the challenge was, and I give a great deal of credit to Marsha and Gil Goldberg, because they had a vision for how it could happen, and we said if there's a way for us to do that, we will take some of our resources and some of our expertise and put it behind that effort. So let's see if we can make that happen. So today is the culmination of a year's worth of hard work. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about why we think this is so necessary in the first place. I would just make the observation that small businesses, and again I would say especially minority-owned businesses, are especially susceptible to having that financing gap, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of economic reasons, but I would just name two of the factors. First of all, a lot of these businesses are newer businesses, so they don't have necessarily an established track record. So at the same time that we're trying to encourage the minority community to engage in business, that means that new people are getting into business that don't have a 10 or 20-year record that they can show to a lender. So that creates a certain hurdle there that we have to get over. Secondly, it's very common for small businesses, as most of you know, to use their property that they may own as collateral for that business to start. Well, if you're in a, because of the downturn in the property market, that has taken some of those resources away, especially if you're in an urban setting where property values have fallen even more. So now you have fewer of your own resources to help get the business started in the first place. So this is part of an approach. It's not a complete solution. Nothing is a complete solution, but this is an important part of how to deal with these challenges to address this financing gap. I want to mention a couple statistics that I think are pretty compelling. If you look at what those barriers are to growth for a small business, about half of small businesses, according to the Federal Reserve Bank, half of small businesses have significant trouble accessing financing. 1 in 3 end up using personal real estate as collateral, as I just mentioned. 1 in 5 use personal credit cards, not exactly an ideal method, but to finance their growth. We're seeing a lot, the good news is we're seeing a lot of demand for additional financing. That means that we've got some economic growth going on. But it isn't sufficient to just say, well, try to borrow against property that you may own or try to use commercial debt. That's why the involvement of the cities that we have and the involvement in the Urban League is so critical. None of this would be possible from the county's point of view, if we hadn't already reserved funds for these kinds of purposes. So 3 years ago now, almost 4 years ago, when we created the Western Reserve Fund, which has $100 million worth of capacity, we didn't have all of the various multiple programs completely developed. We created the capacity first, and then we said as we develop programs, we can draw down on that $100 million amount when it's appropriate, when a program makes sense. But step one was to create that amount of capacity. That was a unique decision that this county had never made before. No other county in Ohio has done it before, and we're proud that we created the capacity. But creating capacity is only the first step. Then you have to create a program that makes sense. So you're not just shoveling money out, but you're doing it in a responsible and a strategic way. And this, as soon as we heard the concept, we said, this makes sense to us. This is a way to take some of that $100 million and put it behind a program that's strategic. So first and foremost was to create the capacity. Second, we had to have the right partners, and we do. Shaker Heights and Cleveland are perfect partners as kind of early adopters of this. We're hopeful that if this is successful, that we'll be able to continue to expand it. But we're doing this on a pilot basis with those two municipalities. I had seen these kinds of programs on a smaller scale work when I was mayor of Lakewood, so that I know that they will work. The Urban League is a perfect partner because they have these connections with the community that make sure that a lot of these barriers we talked about are going to be overcome. And then the SBA, of course, has the technical expertise, and they have the relationship with the financial institutions to make it all work. Now, what kind of a scale are we talking about? We're talking about, from the county's point of view, an initial match of $750,000. We anticipate that would serve no less than 15 businesses. It could be more than that, but we've targeted about 15 businesses for forgivable loan amounts of up to $50,000. After the first 2 years of the program, we can review it. What worked? What didn't work? Should it be scaled down or scaled up? And the good news is we'll have the resources to scale it up if it's a success, as we hope that it will be. Before I leave the podium, I want to compliment in particular not just my staff at the county, Larry Benders and his team, our partners that I've already mentioned, but also Councilman Purnell Jones. You're going to hear from him later, but he has been such a persistent advocate for the African American business community, because he is a businessman in the African American community and has been for many years, along with his family. And I'm just glad that a year ago he helped spur this discussion, and we were open to having the discussion, and we had kind of laid the foundation to do these kinds of programs. So this is a very happy day. We've always had a challenge in this community that when we're in a growth period, is that growth reaching really our whole society? Or are we headed towards an economy where when we have periods of economic growth, only a very small sliver of our community actually experiences that? We've always had that problem. And again, not that this is a complete solution to this, but we need to start designing programs that recognize that reality, that there's whole parts of our society and community that have been cut off from the benefits of free enterprise and capitalism and small business growth. This is going to help with that, and I hope it sets a model to follow for many, many years to come. At this point in time, I want to turn it over to Gil Goldberg, who is such an essential part in making this happen today. Gil?
Thank you. My job today is to go through the mechanics of the initiative and how it actually works. But before I get to that, if you allow me to tell you one story. We did get together with County Executive Ed FitzGerald and his staff, and that was about a year ago. But this really goes back probably about 14, 15 years ago to Youngstown. We started an initiative like this in Youngstown, and it worked very well. Over the years, it helped about 80 businesses create 1,000 jobs and put out over $20 million over the period of time. But there was one thing missing. I kept saying, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? How could we help municipalities, especially now when their budgets are really tight, leverage their funds even to a greater extent? How could we induce them to come up with that initial pool of funds in a tight budget to help small business? And what we did, as County Executive Ed FitzGerald stated, Marsha and I and Ray Graves from my office went over and met with the county executive and his staff, and they had the foresight to set up this $100 million fund. And that was just what we needed. We needed someone to say, hey, this is a good idea. We'll provide the municipalities with an incentive to join the initiative by matching dollar for dollar what they put up in forgivable loan or a performance grant to small businesses. We'll match that dollar for dollar. We'll run it as a pilot program, and it's matched dollar for dollar as a performance grant if the businesses do three things, because this is not a free lunch. This is not a giveaway program. This is not free money. The businesses have to qualify in three ways to be able to take advantage of the performance grant, or really four ways. First, they have to meet the eligibility and performance requirements that the two cities, Shaker Heights and Cleveland, require. Then they have to have skin in the game. They have to put in 10% equity. There is no free money. You have to have 10% equity. Then it even gets harder after that. You have to put together a business plan. You have to put together a business model, and you have to work with the SBDC at the Urban League. The SBDC is one of the SBA partners that is designed and functions to help small business develop business plans. It's not an easy task. It's hard, it's arduous, but it's something that we at the SBA feel is necessary, because those businesses that do complete business plans have a greater rate of success than those that just go out, get that credit card offer in the mail, and say, I'm going to open up my business. The business plan is a critical element in the success of a business. So they have to have that 10% equity, they have to develop a business plan, and then they have to qualify for an SBA loan through a participating bank. Then they could get to that performance grant that the county is matching and that the cities put up. So it's not free money, it's an arduous task, but it does work. And the way you start the process is, for a small business person, what they would do would contact the two cities, Cleveland and Shaker Heights. In Cleveland, they would contact Anthony Thornton. There's a brochure on everyone's chair here. On that brochure, it lists Anthony Thornton's email address and phone number, and that's for the city of Cleveland. You get started right there. And for the city of Shaker Heights, it's Tanya Maness, and again, she's listed in the brochure with her phone number and email address. And I'll let you in on a little secret here. When we were having the conversations with the county executive and his staff, he's putting in big money here, and I thought he'd want a role up front, but he was really smart enough to realize that this is grassroots. The county could stand behind it and match the dollars, but it's the cities that know their small business community, and he made the decision that the cities, not the county, was going to be the point of intake. And I think that was the right decision, because it's people like Tanya and people like Anthony Thornton that know their community, know their small businesses, and are able to work with them very well. So even though you were putting up the money, you're like the silent partner, and you had the foresight and wisdom to put the focus on the cities, which is the way it worked in Youngstown and the way it's going to work here, and I'm sure it's going to be a success. The Urban League, I'm glad we have the Urban League as the partner, because they're putting the focus on the neighborhoods to make sure this is an inclusive initiative and everyone is brought in. And after you work with Tanya and work with Anthony Thornton at the cities will issue a letter of preliminary commitment. Once the borrower gets that letter, the borrower then can take that letter to the participating banks that are working with us on this initiative. A copy of that letter will also go to each participating bank in the hope that they will contact the borrower. And in the event that they don't, we at the SBA have Ray Graves, and if Ray Graves would just stand up and identify himself, Ray Graves will make sure that the banks follow up. That's Ray's job there. At the end of the press conference, I will ask each bank to introduce themselves. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our partner at the Urban League, Marsha Mockabee.
We already talked a little bit about the Urban League's role. I do want to take this opportunity, though, to say it is so befitting that we are celebrating this great announcement and this great partnership with the county and with the SBA and our cities here today. Because this month, right, Michael? This month of June, the Urban League of Greater Cleveland is celebrating its 10th year of having an SBDC at the Urban League of Greater Cleveland. And we are one of the first Urban League to have an SBDC. So this is our 10th anniversary, so this is fitting. So thank you. And I want to acknowledge Michael Obie, who has been a great leader with me in keeping our entrepreneurship center growing, thriving, flourishing. And I earlier mentioned our director, Donna Dabbs of our SBDC, who's here. With this, I'm just going to say every day in the SBDC, Donna and her team get to see firsthand the needs of small businesses. And she says whenever we meet with them, and Michael tells me all the time, I said, what are some of the top things that our businesses need? Access to capital, they need business acumen, they need support, they need back office support, but access to capital is always high. I also want to compliment county executives team. We had the fortunate opportunity to work with Larry Benders and with Nate Kelly, and let me tell you what I so appreciated about that experience. When we came, county exec said right away, this sounds like a great idea, you all go away and make it work. Larry and Nate kept saying, we got to find a way. Maybe this way doesn't work right, but we think we have another way, and they wouldn't give up until they helped us to find an approach that makes sense. So this was my first experience in this role in working with the county at that level, and I'll tell you, I've appreciated every step of that walk and have appreciated your counsel and your advice and your stick-to-itiveness to make sure we got this done. So thank you so very much. So without further ado, at this point, I will bring to you my county councilman, Councilman Pernell Jones. Okay.
Well, today is a good day. I'm very happy to be here, and Ed has given you background on how we've gotten here today. But let me share with you, from my perspective, why I think this is so important. Although I'm a county councilman, I'm a funeral director by profession. And I think it helps round out our council. We have many lawyers and other business owners, but I found I brought something to the table that I think is helpful. I look at the community, and I grew up on East 73rd and Cedar Avenue, right here on the east side of Cleveland. And I look at this job and I say, how do I improve the district I represent? And I say, a good community needs three basic things: good school system, strong housing stock, and strong neighborhood businesses. You can bring that to the table. You have something to work with. So my work here at County Council has been, how do I impact one of these three areas at any particular time? And it was said earlier, you need to be proactive, and you do. And this is one of those proactive moments. I'd like to share with you my personal story, which I think fleshes out a lot of the numbers we've heard and just what this program is capable of doing, because it is one critical part in a pipeline of things that are needed to help individuals who have a desire to go into business for themselves and be successful. My family business starts with my grandfather. He was a janitor, lived in Baltimore, Maryland, but it was always his dream that there'd be a business for his family to work in. And he was one who was very conservative. He simply saved his money. Got his hair cut once a week, didn't spend much on anything else, gave what he had to his wife, and simply saved money. When his oldest son, Marshall Jones Jr., decided he wanted to start a funeral home, my grandfather lent him the money. That's how he got the dollars needed to start the Marshall Jones Funeral Home in Baltimore, Maryland. 10 and 11 brothers and sisters, and they all worked in the business as well. My father was a licensed funeral director. Some of the sisters were secretaries, but my grandfather's dream had come true. There was now a business in Baltimore for the entire family to work in. Well, my father, one day after maybe 10 years from the 60s to the early 70s, decided he wanted his own business, and he didn't want to open up in competition with his brother. So he decided, so the family wouldn't have to decide who to use, he decided to move to Cleveland. He came to Cleveland in 1973. And if anyone has ever been to Baltimore, people live in row houses. All the houses are connected, kind of like the Cosby Show, if you ever seen that house. And funeral homes tended to be on the corner of those row houses because the corner house was a little bit larger. They made a good location for a funeral home. So when my father came to Cleveland, he saw on East 73rd and Cedar this freestanding house, and he loved it. He said, this funeral home is a mansion. We moved in, we lived upstairs, the business was downstairs. That was critical because you never had to worry about maintaining 2 mortgages, a lease and a mortgage. It was a fundamental key to our success early on because we didn't do much business. We literally only did 1 funeral the first year. But that's how we survived, living upstairs, the business downstairs. So over the years, we acquired the land while someone would move out of a neighboring property, and he would acquire it until one day in the 80s, we had the entire city block from East 71st to East 73rd. And it was my dad's dream to build a brand new facility to serve the community across the entire city block. He had seen that done by a successful funeral home in Baltimore, and he was modeling after that. So throughout the 80s, we tried to get loans. And I remember, I'm in high school age, and I'm sitting with my father, and we've had many banks come by and take our financials, and many never came back to us. Some said we didn't qualify, so again, some just never responded. So I just remember the frustration on my dad's face over the years. But we continued to do as my grandfather did. We saved our money, we nickel and dimed our way to what growth we could do. But then the empowerment zone came along. The City of Cleveland's empowerment zone, a $100 million program to help business in the inner city areas of Cleveland. We went running down to the empowerment zone, and they were very helpful, extremely helpful. They came to the table. They brought a bank with them. First Merit, excellent. It was a $1 million project, and I remember them saying, Mr. Jones, you have to have a certain amount of, I think the dollar amount was $125,000. So we had to have some skin in the game. Understand that? It's important. You must have skin in the game. Everyone, part of it needs to be vested in the success of the project. But we did not have $125,000. So we didn't know what we were going to do. But then there was some smart person down at the city who came forward and said, well, Mr. Jones, you bought all that property over the years. That counts. And I said, okay, that's great. That's all right. They added it up. The property was about $200,000. So 200 from $1 million, 20%. We were over the threshold. We had more than enough. Okay. So they brought the project together. $1 million project, First Merit Bank, the City of Cleveland loans, everything was payable in 10 years. We built a brand new facility across that entire city block. 1 level, pretty green grass out front. We went from 6 part and full-time employees to about 16 part full-time employees. Some of those employees lived in the city of Cleveland, not far from the funeral home, and some of the new homes that were being built at that time. 10-year programs, a 10-year loan. We repaid it in 10 years, from 1998 to 2008. We paid in full. So all the doubts and question marks we had after hearing all of these comments that we couldn't repay it, we weren't a viable loan, we did it. So we were happy about that, 2008. So now my family's financial future was secure. But not only mine, it was impactful to the community. The physical appearance does something positive for people just driving through the community to be able to see that, to see a nice facility. We hire those I have employees who have felonies on their record. There are many major companies who write you off just when they see that. As long as they pass my interview process, I don't have a problem. As long as they have a driver's license, I can put them behind a limousine, put a black suit on them, and Tell them you have to be a gentleman as you deal with my clientele, act in a professional manner. If you can do that, then you can work for me. And they do. This is something that small business does. And it's critical that we have many more, because there are many people who need work, and small business is going to be that stepping stone to maybe the corporate America or others. We have employees who have launched into their own businesses, but they came through our establishment. I have a young man now who joined us in high school. He's going to school to be a doctor, but he loves the funeral industry. But he's been with us. These are the things what's that catchphrase? A good place to live, work, and play. We like to say in the city of Cleveland, a great place to live, work, and play. But that's what we do. That is what a small business is capable of doing. And this is what this one critical component in this entire pipeline does. So I want to, again, just congratulate Marsha Mockabee, Gil Goldberg for their work, for bringing, sometimes you just have to hitch your wagons. You don't have to come up with the idea. This was their brainchild, but it fed directly into what I believed in. So I was with them 100%. So I just want to give them a round of applause for their hard work. And again, thank you to everyone who's been a partner, a strong partner in this initiative. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mayor Earl Leiken from Shaker Heights. I first want to introduce Councilman Earl Williams, who's with me today representing our community. Councilman Williams is really wearing three hats. He's a member of our Shaker Heights Development Corporation, which is going to benefit from this, and he's also a member of the board of the Urban League. And I want to thank the Urban League, Marsha Mockabee, and all the others with the Urban League who are hosting us this morning, and for your involvement in this program. We in Shaker Heights are extremely pleased to be part of the SBA County Municipal Small Business Initiative. Tanya Maness, who's our Economic Development Director, is here with me and has been working closely with the SBA to help us become a part of this extremely valuable program. This comes at a very pivotal time in the economic development of our own community because we are moving very aggressively from being a community that was almost entirely residential to a community that has a much better balance of residences and businesses in our tax base. Moreover, we're in the middle of a very critical economic development in our Van Aken retail and commercial district, and we are seeking to attract businesses to that center. And this initiative allows us to take the funds that we put into the program and effectively double those funds available to help us attract businesses through the money provided by the county. This initiative will create and expand businesses, and it will create jobs, which is good for all of us. We're very grateful to our county executive, Ed FitzGerald, who has been a great friend and partner for our cities and their economic development. And he and I are really teaming up this morning. We're wearing almost exactly the same suit. And also to our county council, Purnell Jones, I see Jack Schron in the back, and others on our county council who have supported this initiative. We're also grateful, of course, to the SBA, to Mary Ann Markowitz, who's here today, and also to Gil Goldberg for his creativity in developing this program, Ray Graves and the entire staff over at the SBA, which led this entire process. And finally, let me say that we are really delighted to be paired up in this initiative with the city of Cleveland. I happen to be a native Clevelander. My family came to Cleveland around 1905. But more importantly for our community, Our residents work in Cleveland, and Cleveland's development is extremely important to us. So we're very proud to be paired up with Cleveland this morning. This is good for Shaker Heights, this is good for Cleveland, this is good for our region, and we're just pleased to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Mayor Jackson, I just want to welcome everyone here. I'm so glad that people could turn out on this very important issue about small business lending. I want to thank County Executive Ed FitzGerald for partnering with us, and it certainly is great to be working with Shaker Heights and, of course, the Urban League and SBA. It's a great program. I think this is very important for the city of Cleveland because one of the things that the executive mentioned is how do we stretch our funds to do the most we can with the money that we have? And programs like this, where the city and the county put in a small amount of money to leverage those bank dollars to help those businesses who had that barrier of not being able to get a loan to be able to get a loan, it's critically important. Sometimes we're able to put together some other financing where the city might have to put in up to 40% of a total project cost in order to help that company be eligible for a bank loan. In this case, the percentage that we have to put in is much smaller because everyone's working together. It's a great partnership. And when we all work together, everyone puts in a little bit of money to make the goal happen. We think that's great. I wanted to mention that Anthony Thornton, who is running the program, is not here today. He's on a dream vacation. He's golfing in Pebble Beach. So I told him for that, okay, you don't have to cancel the vacation, but he is excited about the program. And it's great to see several of our community development corporations are here today. And we need you to help get that word out. This is a great program. We've already got a couple of businesses who are interested. We can't wait to hit the ground running. And to County Councilman Purnell Jones, I just want to say thanks for sharing that story because it's things like that that makes me realize why it's great to be a public servant. It's great that someone sat down with a business to figure out how we could help you get the project done. And I think that's critically important. I know that that's what the Jackson administration believes in is how do we get the project done? If we just sit there and say, no, can't do it, then we don't move our city forward. It does have to be a great place to live, work, and play. And I'm really excited that we're going to have this opportunity to be able to help more businesses. So thank you very much, and thank you to all of our partners for making this happen. We appreciate it.